maybe table your questions so that we can start with your questions. Are you using your phone?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I thought you are using a computer. Maybe you can display if you have a soft copy. But maybe you can, we can write somewhere. Maybe we can write somewhere. Let me use PowerPoint.
Okay.
I think you can, irrespective, maybe if you have looked at the past papers that we had, and there is something that you have not done. Remember we said if it is easy, or maybe it's hard for you to send the soft copy. Is it hard?
Yes, maybe if I take the picture.
That's why nilikuwa nakwambia unipatie hivyo. It's still okay.
Okay.
Okay. So which are those questions that has an issue?
In memory management.
So the whole of memory management.
Yes.
Okay. So I think there is an issue. Maybe if you see my sound maybe is breaking, you will tell me.
Okay.
So when you look at memory management,
yes.
So what we are saying, when you look at the memory management, we were supposed to look at various techniques that we are supposed to look at. Mostly we need to understand those techniques. And one of the yes, Yvonne, I think, hey, Yvonne, sijawahi kuona class.
Ni mimi nimemwambia kuje.
Alikuwa wapi? Hey, Yvonne, congratulations. Welcome, Yvonne. Congratulations. So if you look at memory management, we are supposed to understand about the application of memory management, or why do we need to use memory management in an operating system. And in most cases, we understand that memory management is a way of organizing memory. So making sure that the memory is organized in a manner that the users will be able to, or maybe the system itself will be able to organize some processes in that memory. So in that concern, we always understand that for you to organize that memory, we must always work with what you call the memory management techniques. So the first question that you are supposed to ask yourself is what is the advantage of an operating system in this memory management? And if you can remember what we said, mostly the operating system is used to allocate memories. So we are looking at allocation of memory. Sorry. So we have allocation of memory. Then we look at the allocation of memory. And then we can look at now what you call keeping track of the memory. Now, when you are keeping track of the memory, what are we looking at? Mostly we are looking at the various types of the memories that we have. So in terms of this is the first allocation. Then if it is the first allocation, why should we have the first allocation and not the second allocation? So that is the concern that we are supposed to.
Your voice is breaking.
And so, Michelle.
Yeah.
Michelle.
Yes.
Can you give me at least 10 minutes? I have some emergency I want to attend, please.
Okay.
Sawa sawa, nitakupigia na uambie Yvonne asiende.
Bundles inamsumbua.
Naelewa na hiyo station, msijali, ndio sawa. Okay, so what we are saying, we were supposed to look at various techniques. And the moment we are looking at the various techniques, we said one of the techniques that we have, because we have said we are using allocation of the memory, we have the first technique, which is called partitioning. We have partitioning. The next one is what you call paging. The next one is what you call segmentation. And remember, we said we have what you call the virtualization or the virtual memory. Now, in this case, when you're talking about partitioning, if you can remember that, we are doing what you call allocation as one of the activity of an operating system. So we need to allocate a process to a memory. And the moment we are allocating a process to a memory, maybe I'm using a paint. Maybe to do that, we can look at that. So we said, if we have a memory presentation, and we say the memory is always as an array presentation, and we want to allocate these memories, we have to look at two things in partitioning. One, we have to look at it as a dynamic partition, or we have to look at it as a static partition. And the moment we look at the static partition, we say it's also called fixed partition. And when you look at variable, sometimes we call it variable partition or varying partition. And within this partition, the first one, fixed, we are having memories, and these memories that we have, they are categorized, or they are divided into sections. And these sections are either fixed, and if they are fixed, it means they are either in two categories. That is equal, and the next one can be unequal partition. So those are two things that we need to understand within that. This partition can be variable or can be static. So if it is static, we have to look at equal partition or unequal partition. The moment you talk about equal partition is where we are saying maybe this can be a 4 memory, the other one can be a 4 memory, the other one can be a 4 memory. 4 memories, 4 memories. But when you say it is unequal, it means this can be 4, 5, 8, 10, etc. And that one is changing in terms of the fixed size that we have. So suppose we have some processes 1, maybe we have processes 2, then we have processes 3 that we are supposed to store it in a certain memory. This is supposed to have 4, this is supposed to have 2, and this is supposed to have maybe 6. And these are the allocations that we have. So in this case, what we say is that, first of all, we know that this is where the operating system is. And the next one is now, we are assuming this is the first one. Remember, we must use some algorithms. And then we must use some, what you call policies. So which are these policies am I using? The first policy is best fit, worst fit, next fit, first fit, etc. But we have replacement algorithm. So we have placement policies and replacement algorithms. One of them, we said the first one is what you call optimal. We have optimal algorithm. Then we can still use what we call the first come, first serve. So we are using one of the algorithm here, maybe to define where the memory is supposed to be, the process is supposed to be allocated in a memory. Suppose it is allocated here, and the first process to be allocated is this. So we allocate the first process, process 1, and when you allocate this process 1, so automatically what we have is that now this one we have already exhausted within the memory. Then the next one we are supposed to allocate it here. Remember, as you allocate a process, every time we allocate a process, we must make sure that the process that we are allocating is accommodated within a given memory. So we cannot accommodate another process in this memory. So this becomes a whole. This becomes a whole, and because it is a whole, we have some memory waste. Then we can go to process 3. So process 3 cannot be allocated in a memory where it is left here for the second allocation. Now we have to allocate process 3 here. But when you allocate this process 3, remember process 3 cannot fully be accommodated in this memory. So what we say is that because this one cannot be fully allocated in this memory, we must create what you call an overlay memory. That is what we said. And when we create an overlay memory, we are saying there is a memory that temporarily stores some processes that has not been accommodated fully in the execution. So when you store it here, this one we can say it is virtual. So becomes a virtual. So that's why sometimes we say it's a virtual memory, because it is in a hard disk. So we store it in a hard disk. When you look at this allocation, if you come now to process the other one, we have to look at which memory is there, which free memory, which is the free memory here. We assume it is here. So we can now allocate 2 here. And the moment we allocate 2 here, what we have resulted here is an error of what you call fragmentation. And the fragmentation that has already resulted to this issue is what you call the external fragmentation, because the memory was too small to accommodate that process. But here we have resulted to what you call internal fragmentation. And internal fragmentation is when we have a very large memory, but this very large memory that we are having here cannot be accommodated as a whole. So we have left a hole which is not accommodated inside the memory. So for this case, we will be having many holes, because this is another hole that we have already resulted here, where this hole can be combined together to form another memory that can be used. So that's why we said we do what you call compaction. So there is what you call compaction. So compactioning is when you bring the memories together and the holes together, so that now we can allow other executions over a process in it. So that is what we said about the allocation of the memory when you're using partitions, unless there is a question. Is there any question? I hope, Michelle, you are in class.
Yes, I'm in class.
Now, is there any issue on partitioning? Have you understood partitioning? Why do we have compactioning? Why do we need to create an overlay memory?
Yes.
Okay. So we said this is not the best method because you have a lot of external fragmentations. And that's why we said we can go to what you call what? Paging. So the same way we can do with an equal is the same way we are supposed to do with the equal partition. So that's why I've done away with that. So in paging, we said we create frames. And the moment we are creating frames, I remember what we said about these frames. We said we need to look at a presentation on where these frames are supposed to be allocated to a process. So if this is a memory, so we must have some pages here. That is what we said. And here we have the CPU. So there is where we have the CPU. So in this case, we are having what you call the logical addressing. But because now we want to have a physical addressing somewhere, we need to use a certain memory somewhere that can be used in allocation. So paging is the same as fixed. It is fixed because automatically we must first of all create the pages that we need. Then within here, out of these pages that we have, we must displace them. So we displace a page somewhere here. Maybe we displace another page somewhere here. So when you displace that, you have now to create what you call a page frame. So here we said we create what you call a page frame. And in a page frame, we have the page number, and then we have the frame number. Then we can have what you call the size. So in this case, if the page number for this one is 0, and this one is 1, this one is 2, so we have 0, and you have 1. Where will I allocate it in a frame? So remember that this frame, because it is fixed, allocated, now we can say in frame number 0, frame number 1, frame number 2, frame number 3, frame number 4, according to the availability of that memory, this is where we can allocate maybe 2. This one we can allocate 4. So in this case, we will be able to allocate the frame here. We look at the frame number. Frame number 2 has been allocated page 0. Frame number 4 has been allocated 1. So that is now how we allocate these pages. So when you come to the physical allocation or the physical addressing, now what we are looking at the frame and the page. When you come to the page, we are looking at the processes that are supposed to be allocated. So that is the concern that we have. And that's why we said we must know, we must have a prior knowledge of how, we don't have a prior knowledge of which process is supposed to be allocated in a given memory. So in this case, that's why we said when you're allocating that, just have a page, maybe pages that we are having. Then we have a frame number. Then within this frame number, we can now look at now how we can be able to allocate this. And then after that, we allocate it in the physical memory. So there is no need of maybe showing the flow of how I have maybe given you this flow, or maybe I have displayed the flow. Now, automatically what we require is the page frame. And then we require the pages. And we require the physical memory. So if you have that, you can be able to define that. And that's why we're saying that at least this one has already reduced the external fragmentation. We can try to reduce the internal fragmentations. It is not like when you are having partitioning, because now in this case, we can be able now to see the size of the memory before even allocate it in the physical allocation, of which now we must do what you call compaction, because compactioning is as a result of bringing the memories together and the wholes together to improve the execution. So we can say this one is much efficient than when you are using partitioning, and it is able to execute more processes. So we can allow more processes. Remember, in a page, you can have more processes. In another page, you can have more processes. But now the issue is, suppose the user wants to add a process or want to add some improvement within a given process. So sometimes we always have an issue in that addition, because as long as the process has been taken to the frame, now the page has been taken to the frame or has been allocated to the page, automatically you cannot add another process. You have to create another page somewhere. So in this memory or in this allocation, we have replication of memories. It is very hard for us to delete because we don't know how they are related to each other. And it is not all that efficient than other algorithms, than other techniques that we have, but it is much efficient than when we are using what you call partitioning. So we find that partitioning is not efficient than when you are using what you call the memory paging. Are we together?
Yes.
Any question?
I've understood paging and
Partitioning.
Yes.
What about the next one, segmentation now?
Yes.
So if you go to segmentation, I will still use this concept. When you go to partitioning, segmentation, sorry, we allow what you call expandability. Expandability of the memories. We still allow what you call efficiency. The moment we allow much of the efficiency is because within these, we create frames. So you can, sorry, not frames, we create segment. If there's a segment 0, a segment 1, and there's a segment 2. So what it means is that within a segment, we can have various pages. That's why we are saying we can allow expandability of the memory. Meaning, this is dynamic. This is dynamic. When you talk about dynamic, mostly when you look at in partitioning, we allocate the process when it arrives. So the memory is allocated when the process is known. So for this one, it's the same as dynamism, meaning the memory is known and we cannot have what you call the external fragmentation. Maybe we can have what you call we cannot have internal segmentation we have completely reduced or we have completely removed. But the external fragmentation comes when you have a memory, but this memory you have tried to allocate it completely. But the moment you are allocating that, we can say we have allocated, but we have left a very small portion because the pages or maybe the segment was having a large size. And if it was having a very large size, automatically we must have a memory where it will be left, which is too small. So external fragmentation, we cannot completely reduce. We cannot completely reduce the external fragmentation, but we have totally minimized the external fragmentation. But we have totally reduced or removed completely the internal fragmentation. Because at this point, we must know the processes. So in this segment, we have segment 0, where we're having pages. So in this segment, we can have page 1, we can have page 2, we can have page 3, we can have page 4. If you look at paging, we are having one page at a time. But for this case, we are having various pages within a segment. Suppose now I want to add another one, maybe in process 1, I can still add. The only thing that we need to look at is now, which is the size. Is this size able to accommodate another process that we have within the process 1? And if it is able now to accommodate that, it's very easy for now to add another process. So it is very easy for us now to add another process. So for this one, we are allowing addition of other processes in it. Even though the process has executed, we can still add because there is room of addition. And that's why we look at this point. When we are storing a process, we will be able to store within a physical memory where we can have the first frame, the second frame, the third frame. We say this is segment 0. And if it is segment 0, it is able now to accommodate everything because we are allocating the size here after we have already known the size of the segment. So we don't allocate the way we are allocating in paging where we had fixed. We are now mapping them. But for this case, we are not mapping. We are now allocating as it arrives. So if the process arrives, we allocate it. If another process arrives, we allocate it. So if a segment is having 2, here we allocate a memory of 2. 2 here. If here we are allocating a segment of 15, now here we are allocate another segment of 15. So it means we have reduced internal fragmentation, but as we progress, we will have what you call the external fragmentations. So in this case, we can improve efficiency. Remember, efficiency is as a result of the right executions, no loss of data within that execution, and many other things that we can have within that executions. Are we able now to interpret? Are you able now to explain what is external fragmentation? If I ask you a question on that.
Yes. So the question that I have,
Yes,
is that for paging, the
yes,
difference between paging and segmentation is that paging has a fixed size and segmentation, it is
as a
variable.
dynamic,
Yeah.
memory allocation. Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
And we can also say that in segmentation, it is more efficient because of memory allocations than when you have paging. Then we can allow flexibility within segmentation than when we don't have flexibility within paging. And that's why when you look at in paging, we already know before you even have a process. It's like it's like maybe if you give the real life scenario, it's like when you maybe graduate. It's like like now we are anticipating that we are supposed to do exams on July, but July it's next month. Now we cannot anticipate that maybe we will start our exam on July. Maybe we will start on September. We don't know. So in that case, if you are using maybe a real life scenario, is like we know that we must sit for that exam on July, but you never even know about tomorrow. So for this case, in paging, it's like we know tomorrow what we will have tomorrow. But for segmentation, we don't know until we reach at that point. That is when we'll be able to know how we'll be able to allocate that. Is that okay?
Mm.
Yes. So Titus, I think you have joined the class. You are very new in this class. Am I right?
Yes.
Titus Gayo. You have joined the class?
Mwalimu ni bundles.
Naerewa. I'm understanding that, but we praise God because we have already completed the syllabus.
Yeah.
So it is just revision,
Mwalimu mi ujoin zote.
Nimeona una joiningi. I'm sorry for that. Nilikuwa nasema ujoin. I know you join.
Sasa hii nimekimbia cyber ndo maana kuna kelele hivyo background.
Ya saidi yako ama?
Huku kwangu kuna kelele bali niko.
Oh, okay, sir. But you can hear what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay, sir. So we were looking at now, the issue was on memory management. And on memory management, Michelle had said that we had an issue on memory management as a whole, and that's why we were looking at various techniques that we have. So I think you'll go through them. If you have a question, maybe you'll ask, so that maybe we can proceed to others in terms of maybe algorithms on that. Is there any issue on algorithms? Michelle and Titus, is there any issue on memory algorithms?
No.
But I can have a recap,
Yes.
Okay, so if you look at memory allocations, we are looking at now allocating of the memory through the use of what we call placement and replacement. But when you are using replacement, we use replacement algorithms. So I think in this virtual memory is the one that we have not tackled. And if you look at the virtual memory, is the memory that you allocate because the memory that was there was not able to accommodate the execution. That's why we were creating a separate memory for that allocation. And this is mostly done by what you call the demand paging, where you allocate a memory, but this memory, because it was not able to execute all the processes, now you swap, you create swapping. So when the memory is full, you take it to the secondary memory. Then when the memory is free, you take back to the memory for execution. That is what you call virtualization or virtual memory. So in these techniques in virtual memory, we use what you call demand paging, and I think that one is not new to you. So if you look at algorithms, we have what you call replacement algorithm. Replacement algorithms, and what you call placement policies. At the moment you talk about the replacement algorithms, what comes in your mind is one, optimal algorithm. Then we have fast come, fast serve algorithm. Then the next one that we have, we can use what you call the least recently used memory. Least recently used memory. But most of them, in most of these algorithms, we use fast come, fast serve, and optimal. And in this case, that's why we say that if you're using the fast come, fast algorithm, we are looking at now the connection strings that we have. In this memory allocation, which are these connection strings that we supposed to have? Maybe we can have 2, we can have 3, we can have 4, we can have 1, maybe we can have 2, we can have 1, we can have 4. Those are the connection strings that you are supposed to store in a given memory. The first come, first serve, you are using the first one. If you look at the first memory that we are having, maybe we are saying this memory has already been divided into 3. So we have 3 allocations that we need to allocate a memory at a time. So the first one, we start with the 2 here. Remember, these are free. So that's why we say the result to what you call the page fault. Why is it resorting to a page fault? It is resorting to a page fault because this memory was not previously allocated in this space. And we have now allocated it as the first one. So if it is the first one to be allocated, automatically it means it resort to a page fault. If you go to the second allocation, after allocating 2, remember 2 is still executing, we will not replace that 2, but we will have 3 here. We resort to a page fault because 3 was not allocated in that space. If you go to the next one, we allocate 2 here, then we allocate 3 here, then the next one that we are supposed to allocate is now 4. We resort to a page fault. So in this case, the memory is full, but can we say that now we are not supposed to allocate the memories to a page? Now we must allocate. So the next allocation is now to replace. And the moment you are replacing them, the first question that you are supposed to ask yourself, which was the first memory that was allocated? The first string or the first memory was 2. So you replace with the 1. So you replace this with 1, this becomes 3, and this becomes 4. This result to a page fault because 1 was not allocated previously. Then we go to the next one. The next one that we are supposed to allocate is now 2. Remember, 2 was allocated previously, but it has already been removed. But we are supposed to replace with which memory? So remember, we are supposed to replace with 3 because 3 was the first come, first serve. So you replace 2 with 3. We replace 3 with 2. This result to a page fault because we had already removed the memory 2. Then the next one that we are supposed to allocate here, if you are using the first come, first serve, we need to replace 4. But we need to replace 4 with 1. Remember, 1 is still in the memory. So for this case, we cannot replace a memory that is in the memory. So we now resort to what you call the page hit. So when it resorts to a page hit, it's because it was located previously, and because it was allocated previously, now it remains the same. So in this case, we are having the same memory. Then we allocate now 4. Remember, we are using first come, first serve. Now 4 was not allocated, was not replaced with. Now we have to replace any memory that is supposed to be replaced here by 4. But unfortunately, 4 is the one that is supposed to be the memory. So we retain the same way. So in this case, we resort to what you call the page hit. Now, if you try to add this page fault, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it is 5 divided by the number of allocations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you get 7. It will be 0 point something. So if it is less than 1% or less than 1, it means that memory allocation is much efficient because one process is not executing for a long time. A process is executing for a short time so that it can execute that process. Are we able now to interpret what I am interpreting now? Is that clear?
Yes.
So that is when we are talking about the first come, first serve. But the moment we are talking about the optimal, what comes in our mind when you're talking about the optimal is, just a minute. So if you look at the optimal, we are looking at the memory. Up to this point, you divide it the way it has been defined because we are now inserting memories that were not there. So up to this point, you have the page fault. But from this point, you have to take 2, 3, and 4. Then from this to memory, because you're using optimal allocation, you ask yourself, which memory is closest to the allocation? If you look at 2, it is very close to the allocation because you have already allocated up to this point. 2 is very close. If you look at 3, 3 is nowhere to be seen in that allocation. If you look at these elements that are here, because you have 1, 2, 1, 4. If you look at 4, 4 is there. So in our case here, if you are using this concept of allocation, for this one, we need to replace the next memory, which is 1, with 3. So for this case, I'm assuming it's this. So we will replace this, it becomes 2. Now you replace 3 with 1. So 1 is supposed to be here, but now 4 is retained. 4 is retained. Because we are looking at the memory that is closest to be replaced, we should not replace that. We should not. If you now move to this, you have already allocated 1. We are allocating 2. 2 is in the memory, so it remains the same. Which is now, this is page fault, this result to what you call the page hit. So for this case, if you are now allocating the memory here, now we will have the same memory. We will have 2. We will have 2, 1, and 4. 2, 1, and 4, which result to a page hit. So we have already allocated that. Then we are supposed to have 1. Remember, 1 is supposed to be retained the same way. Remember, the memory was still there. Now, you find that now you have to retain the memory the way they are. So you have 2, 1. You resort to page hit. Then you are supposed to allocate 4. It resort to another page hit because 4 is supposed to be at the end. So if you look at these are 3, and these are 1, 2, 3, 4. So still, the page hit is 4. The page fault is 4/7. So you find that this is more efficient than when you are using the first come. Because when you divide this, even if you look at the numerators, the numerator is 5 and the other one is 4, you find that this is the best memory allocation. So when you're using optimal, it is best to use optimal rather than when you're using what you call the first come, first serve. I have never seen a question on maybe allocation the way we have allocated here, but it is good to know with the fact, because when you know with the fact, it is good, it is easier for you to explain. And if somebody asks you a question, maybe differentiate between first come, first serve, it is very easy for you now to explain, given that you know how the connection strings are supposed to be observed within that. If you look at least recently used, we are looking at the memory that was recently used should not be replaced. If you look at this, we have 2, 3, and 4. So 2, 3, and 4 was recently used. So you should not replace 2, 4, because it was the one that was recently used. You should not replace 3. You should start with 2. So in this case, it's borrowing some invent from the first come, first serve. And that's why we say most of the algorithms that we use in the memory management, we use optimal or first come, first serve algorithm. First come, first serve algorithm. So I think I have given you a recap of what we find within the execution. Maybe I can give you 1 minute, maybe to ask a question.
My question.
Yes, you have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
My question is based on placement policy.
Yes.
So here in the notes, I've seen that it has some process which is best fit.
Yes, yes.
Best fit.
Worst fit, next fit, yes.
Yes. So I'm
how it works?
a little bit confused. Yeah.
Okay, so if you look at first fit, next fit, and worst fit, if you look at the best fit, we are looking at which is the best memory that you can allocate, or which is the best space that you can allocate to a process, and that is when you are allocating maybe a segment or a page, which is that best memory that you can allocate that will be able to accommodate everything that is in that segment, and it leave an empty space, or it accommodate fully. Like now, if you look at this as a memory of 4 memory, and we are using a best fit. If we can allocate this memory, the whole of this memory, that becomes the best memory that was there to be allocated to a process. If you allocate up to this point, it becomes the best memory that you can allocate to that process because it was able to accommodate a process completely. So when you're explaining a best fit, they're saying this is the best memory that you can allocate to a process that will fully accommodate it or partially accommodate it, but it will not leave what you call external fragmentation. That is what you call the best fit. The worst fit is the opposite. The memory that can be accommodated within the memory, but it leaves some external fragmentation. That means it is not fully accommodating that process. If the memory is not fully accommodating that process, it becomes the worst fit. The next fit, I think you know, this is the next memory that will be allocated. First fit, that is the first memory or the first whole that is supposed to be allocated to a process. Are you getting that differentiation?
Yes.
Is it clear now?
Yes.
Now, Titus, do you have any issue on that?
Mwalimu.
Okay. Yes.
Nilikuwa nauliza first come first serve.
Yes.
Is it a preemptive?
Now, it depends with the application, because when you are applying it in a process management, it becomes an unpreemptive. It is not a preemptive in process management. It becomes an unpreemptive. None. You cannot remove a process when it is executing and it has not completed the execution. If it has completed the execution, that is the time that you are supposed to remove it. I remember when we are talking about the process management, we are saying we have preemptive and unpreemptive. So when you talk about preemptive and unpreemptive, we talk about process execution. And in process execution, if you are talking about first come, first serve, that first come, first serve, it is an unpreemptive, meaning a process will never be removed in the CPU if it has not completed the execution. You must wait for that process to complete the execution. Yes, so it depends with the application. So when you are applying it in memory management, preemptive and unpreemptive, it does not occur. It only occurs in process management. Are we okay with that?
Yes.
Yes. So I think that is the basic concept that we are supposed to understand within the memory management. Unless there is a question, maybe I can give you two or 1 or 2 minutes. Maybe you can maybe ask a question. Maybe I can start a poll. Maybe you have yes or no. Maybe you can write your response here. So you can write your response. Maybe when you write your response, I will be able to answer those responses. So you can write maybe in that poll, we are using polling. So facilitate yourself, or maybe you can work with that poll. I think you can see that poll. I will publish the results. So so is the question okay? So you can respond to that. Okay. So I think now we can maybe proceed. Maybe we can ask Titus for now. Michelle, I think, are you okay with memory management now? There are some other aspects that we have not discussed. I know we discussed them in class. Mostly what we have covered is the important part of the memory executions, and I think we have covered that. Do you have any issue? For now?
No, I'm okay.
Titus, the memory management. And,
It's okay, Mwalimu.
okay, where is the issue now, according to you, Titus? In which topic do you have any issue?
Ilikuwa hiyo memory management. Hata nilikuwa nataka kukutumia questions fulani WhatsApp jana nikasahau.
You can still send us. You have my number.
Yeah.
Yes, you can still send if you are unable to answer. Michelle, can we go now to the past papers that you looked at? Titus, maybe you looked at the past papers, some of the past papers. Any challenging question, maybe you can give us the year of the question paper and the challenging question that we come across. Or can I give you time maybe to go through the questions on memory management, then we look at which are the issues that we have.
Yes.
And Michelle, please, if you won't mind, just screenshot one of them so that next time we can start with that paper. We revise it from first page to the last. Serious? Unitumie tu kwa WhatsApp.
Today.
Yes, even Titus, maybe you can assist her. Maybe you send the question paper that you are revising through the WhatsApp. Just screenshot. Maybe you can use photo you said. Then next time we'll be able to display, and then you discuss from point 1 up to the last.
Okay.
Yes. Any other question? So there is an assignment that I want to send to you. And that assignment involves on RAID memory. Have I ever given you an assignment on RAID memory?
Yes.
Okay. So there is another, maybe I look at the question papers, then we have an assignment because of grading. But for now, we need to do that revision. I think I have gone all the topics, because I remember last week we started with process management, and from process management we went up to files, of which now we have repeated still on device on memory management. So I think you are in a position of now answering the question from the past papers. Now, I think maybe we can get some challenges that we are coming across when you're answering. Is it possible if I grade you and you be frank? How can you grade yourself when you look at the question papers that you have on NEC? We start with Michelle.
I give myself what I will get.
Yes, you can grade yourself according to the past paper that you have already discussed. Maybe you can look at 1 or 2. Maybe in terms of percentage, you can give yourself how many?
Okay.
How many marks?
50 to 60. 50 to 60.
My friend, sky is the limit. See, you are very frank. You are very frank, of which that is a credit. From 60 is a credit, but you should aim higher. And Titus, according to you, be frank.
Unaona, after tumefanya revision ningesema tu above 50 and above 50. Ini after ini hiyo ingekuwa before nifanye revision, lakini sasa hii at least niko na nimekaa nyumbani, sijakuwa kusoma vile. Sasa at least niko na concept. Sasa hii itapanda. Yeah.
So you are my expectations. I expect you to get a distinction. And if you come to my class, I know distinction is very easy. So can we end our class at that point?
Mwalimu.
Yes?
Watu walienda wapi?
Hata ndio nataka kuuliza walienda wapi? Si unisaidie kutafuta bana. Mimi sijui walienda wapi. Maybe wako quarantine, sijui.
Nilikuwa nauliza. Hapa tuko pamoja na watu wa diploma.
Yes, vyenye tulikuwa tunaenda class, tuko hivyo wote. So we are
nauliza marafiki zangu.
Embu aulize, because now this is an important session. Because at this point, maybe when we come back, we will have a rush hour where now we need to do some exams. And I know you are doing some revision on other exams, on other papers.
Yes.
But are you 2? Only 2, because I only see 2. And today I think we end up a prayer session where we had one student who had never came to this session. Yvonne. Munaendanga nyinyi wawili tu?
Bana. Tutakuwa wengi.
Na ni kwa nini ama wana assume operating system?
Hata hizo zingine wanafanyanga tu hivi.
Okay. Maybe what I'll do, I'll send some names to the registrar, then he should follow up, or administrator to follow up why they are not coming to class. So they'll call their parents. Or I can do that.
Tutakutafutia alafu tutakwambia WhatsApp leo.
Okay, sawa. Hebu niambieni before nitume kwa administrator, because nikituma kwa administrator because wanafaa kupigia wazazi.
Tutakutafutia leo alafu tutakwambia.
Okay, sawa. Simkuwe na siku njema leo.
Hata
wewe.
Sawa.